let's see, what are the challenges that we are seeing in today's enterprise from the cyber defense perspective, because of which we are talking today about the C10, right? We are having a expanding and evolving attack surface. Every day we are looking at having a new assets being spin up across our organization, across the cloud, which we have it. Today, when the cloud started, like, around 10, 12 years back, it was one cloud was the one which people were looking at. Today, almost every enterprise has got, AWS, GCP, Azure or anything, and apart from the on-premise as well. So that means like our attack surface is evolving every day. We are looking at the comprehensive attack. I just want to meet one security leader or IT leader who says like he has got a complete visibility of their network from the asset perspective, whether it's an application or it is a desktop, laptop, servers, cloud assets, whichever it is, because they lack that one. Everyone is highlighting this one, saying that, we don't have the complete visibility of our attack surface because of the tools that we are using. And if I go and touch any enterprise, they will be having across, across security and IT, they will be having at least 15 to 20 tools that they've been using. And each of those tools are having its data siloed. And there is no socialization of the data that we see it. And that is also one of the challenge, right? Because if there is a information which is lying in one of my EDR solution, how can I use that one in my vulnerability management? How can I use those? There's no socialization of the data. Inability to prioritize or validate the real risk. And the whole purpose of the one which you'll be seeing, and when I go to the framework of the C10, we'll be seeing the prioritization and validation part. Today, at the most of the organizations are looking at is the threat intel. What is that is happening in the wild based on the threat intel, looking into EPSS, maybe bringing in some of the business context. Apart from that one, they are not looking at what the millions of dollars that they have spent on the security tools. So they are not actually looking at the tools that they have implemented and how they are actually protecting them. And they're blindly looking into the threat intel to go and prioritize. Second is like, are the vulnerabilities, are the weaknesses that I have identified from the security aspect, are actually getting exploited? Are you able to validate those things? That is also something which is missing. And that is the reason why every organization, they feel is like they are trying to go and chase the wild goose by fixing every single critical vulnerabilities with the basic prioritization of based on the threat intel is not something that helping them. I was talking to one of the security leaders here. They are having the application security. They are using SAST, DAST, SCA. They've been having the vulnerability assessment tools from the infrastructure. They have CSPM, Synapse tools, and every single of them are being driven individually. All the information that is lying are in the individual tools, and they've been driven individually. There's no cross or the aggregation of those vulnerabilities and see how they are actually impacting everyone, right? So everything is driven independent. So there is a fragmented way of driving the vulnerabilities across these. Challenge in aligning the business and the security teams. I don't have to go and emphasize. Everyone knows about that one. Everyone faces this one day in, day out. Complexity in addressing the regulatory and compliance needs. Because of the number of vulnerabilities or the risk issues that we are trying to address, we are always chasing the timeline, chasing the SLAs within which we need to adhere to, and we are missing our auditor and compliance regulatory needs that we are looking at in fixing those things. And then obviously the resource skill gap. Now, if I look into this one, I also wanted to bring in one of the things that I've been hearing across. I've been seeing this one, which happens in the organization. That is, how is the vulnerability management done today? Every organization has got the vulnerability governance team. They are looking at the different vulnerability assessment tools, either it is from the infrastructure or the cloud or the AppSec or from the EASM side. They're taking individually all the data. They're putting information from the leaders, who owns these particular vulnerabilities to remediate, from the CMDB owners. They're getting some of the information from the GRC tools, like what is the criticality of the asset, manually putting it in an Excel sheet, and assigning it to the remediation team, which is the IT. The reason why I mentioned this one is because when you look into this, This is one of the customers that have been discussing. They said, like, to get these things done and get it to the remediation team, it takes 2 days. Now, for them, the challenge is there has been a statistics which says that in 2019, the number of days that it takes to exploit a vulnerability was 63 days. And in 2024, it came down to 5 days. And if I take 2 days to get the vulnerability to the remediation team to fix it, that means like that poor team has got only 2 to 3 days to remediate it. Now, with this, what the organizations are looking at is like they wanted to go and make sure that they are not making it 2 days, but reduce it. So let me take you further, like how we can go and address that one. But now the challenge doesn't stop there. Remediation team comes and says, like, we have remediated it, and the governance team goes and manually validates. Now, the challenge with this one is like there is no prioritization, because of which we are actually trying to fix everything that is there, either exposed, not exposed, in which priority that I need to do it, there's nothing. Slow remediation process, 2 days. It itself shows, like, how much slow that we are. Vulnerability management is fragmented. There's no aggregation of all the vulnerabilities across all my infrastructure. Either I'm talking about the application or infrastructure or the cloud or the external attack surface, CSPM, DSPM, all those things, right? And then inefficient SecOps. So manual processes is the reason for that one. So let's see how we can actually address this one, and for which Gartner has come out with this what we call it as the continuous threat exposure management framework. It is a 5-stage process that Gartner mentions, and obviously, further segmented into 2, that is the diagnose and the actions. So if you look into each stage, what the action, the scoping says is like you need to know what is there in the scope from the CTEM perspective. What are your assets? What are your applications? You need to know that one. Once you know what is those assets, I heard one of these speakers talking about what you can't see, you can't measure, you can't protect. In fact, like we can go further, you can't measure as well what is the impact of that one it is going to have if it gets compromised as well. So the scoping is so important, that know what is there in your network, have them segmented, where they are, how they are connected. The second thing comes is like knowing what are the security weaknesses that you have it from them. Security weaknesses doesn't mean that it is only unpatched vulnerabilities. It can be any vulnerability, any weakness, right? So I wanted to cover on the others part where we look at the not having a security control. Say, for example, I have an EDR. EDR is a control for me. And if it is not present in my on my asset, it is actually a weakness, because I'm having no protection for, from the adversary from that particular asset, and it can be a door for my to get into my network. I wanted to share an example from one of the customers from a paramilitary forces in the region. They had a brand new desktop which has been delivered to the team. They got that one, delivered in the evening. The people were there. They said, like, oh, it's a new one. It's packed. They unpacked it. They just assembled it, connected to the network. And the next day I get a call saying that our entire network is down. We said, like, okay, let me see what's the one. So I went there, I connected to the network analyzer, and I saw that there are three assets which have been broadcasting in the network. When we look into those 3 assets, these were the same asset which were delivered previous day, and they just assembled it and connected with no security control on that one, no EDR, nothing. And they started to go and browse on the internet. Within a couple of hours, it got infected. The reason is why I'm giving you this example is like you need to know if you have got a security control like EDR or the multi-factor authentication or whichever it is to protect your assets, to protect your applications, you know whether they have been covered or not. If it is not, it is actually a risk as well. And that is the one you need to know it from the discovery perspective. Sorry. And then comes the prioritization. So once I know the assets, once I know what is the weaknesses that I have from the security perspective, I need to go and prioritize it. And when we look into the prioritization, what we should be looking at is like beyond the threat intel. Threat intel is needed. It should be there. Threat intel, EPSS scores, CISA, all those are good. But we also need to take into consideration how you have configured your network. What are the security controls that you have implemented in your network? Where is that network placement for those assets? Are they really exposing you? You need to have those contextual information from your network perspective. And then comes the validation stage. So we have done the diagnose part where we know what is my assets, what are the vulnerabilities or the weaknesses that we have identified, we prioritized it, and then I'm going to validate that one, saying that which are those prioritized vulnerabilities or the weaknesses that we have got it are actually getting exploited. And that's where you look into the breach attack simulations, print testing, red teaming exercises, which actually simulate and see which are those weaknesses are actually getting exploited in your network. Identify them, take them, because which are those which are getting exploited are the one which you need to fix it today. Rest of them, you should fix it. There's no other way. The recommendation is to go and have a permanent fix. But when you need to do it is what the question is. And the one which you need to do it is one which are getting exploited. And that's where you go to the mobilization. And the mobilization I see as two-stage activity. One is from the operationalization perspective. Second one is like, how do you go and present your all the activity that you're doing from the remediation, from the tracking perspective, and also present it to the auditors, board, management, whoever it is from the reporting side. When it comes to the operation, you need to know who needs to be fixed, who needs to fix these vulnerabilities, when they need to be fixed, how do I go and assign it automatically? And if you remember in my previous slide, this is one why. So automated assignment should be happening knowing who the owners are. And that is the reason why we will be looking at integrating with whichever data source that you have it, you should go and pull the information about the owners and make sure that they are being used for auto assigning to ticketing, or go and do through email, or whichever it is, wherever it is manual intervention is required. If it is a patching, which is auto patching, or whichever you are taking automated actions, you go and integrate with the tools as well. Now it comes to the reporting part. You need to go and track how they have been remediated and how they have been worked on the from the reporting perspective to the auditors to the board. So this is the 5-stage: scoping, discovery, prioritization, validation, mobilization. Let's see in the next slide like how this should happen from the Zscaler. So this is something that I wanted to highlight, is that if either it's Zscaler or not, for you, if you're really looking at the CTEM, one of the key things that you should be looking at is like having the data from across all your tools that you have implemented, either it's security or it's IT, and even if the data is lying in your flat files. Because data is the one which will go and help you to contextualize it. So get those information into the Fabric, centralized place where you can do it. When we talk about here, we are from the Zscaler, we have something called as Data Fabric. Data Fabric is something which is having a security data lake with intelligence on top of that one, where we build the, the knowledge security graph, building the relationship between the different data sources that we are ingesting the one. So the way that you ingest the data into the Data Fabric is through the APIs from all your different data sources. Now the question comes is like, what should we look in general from the CTEM perspective? What type of data sources? I always highlight 4 things. Number 1, you should look at the data source which provides you the inventory. Number 2, you look at the data source which provides you the vulnerabilities. Number 3, the ones which provides you the business context. Number 4, which provides you the security controls. Go and get all these, any data source which provide all 4 or any of these things should be a data source for you. And that is where these are the representations that you should look at from the ingestion, from the data ingestion perspective. This should be through the APIs or through the flat file ingestions, wherever you have the flat files. And that's when you go and look at the CTEM, where we go and look at providing you the capabilities through the CASM, asset exposure management, what Gartner calls as CASM, cyber asset attack surface management. It provides you this first and the second stage in the Gartner cyber CTEM framework, that is the scoping and the scoping and the discovery. Unified vulnerability management is the one which addresses the second, third, fourth stage, that is the discovery, prioritization, and the validation part. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight here is like, there's no single vendor who will be able to go and do it. So what you need to do is like, you need to make sure that what are the tools that you have invested in, and make sure that you have a platform which is able to go and ingest or integrate with all those tools. So whichever it is, wherever you are getting the most valid information, you should be able to go and ingest that one. So unified vulnerability management, what industry calls as the risk-based vulnerability management, you should be able to go and do the discovery of all your vulnerabilities, prioritize it and validate it. And then obviously do the mobilization part as well. And Risk 360 does for the cyber risk quantification. Now, if I just go and look at each one of them, what they do it. So cyber risk is CASM, as I mentioned, it provides you the complete visibility into your inventory, provides you the non-compliant assets. When I talk about the non-compliant assets, we are looking primarily from the which are those assets which are missing the security controls and mandatory security controls that should be running on your assets, and then improve the asset data hygiene. Again, I need to meet an IT leader or a security leader who has got the confidence in the CMDB. And that is where we can actually help. And when you look into the chasm, you should look at those solutions which can go and update the information into your CMDB and make the hygiene better. That should be one of the things that you should be looking at, because CMDB is the registry of assets for your organization and a single source of truth that you should be looking at. And then comes to the risk-based vulnerability management. Obviously, aggregate all the vulnerabilities, either it's application security, infrastructure, cloud, or it is the CSPM or any SPM you have it, you should be able to go and aggregate that one. Prioritize that one based on your environment, your controls, and then automate the workflows and eliminate the exposures. Now comes to the third one, which is the cyber risk quantification. Make sure that you are actually factoring factors contributing to the risk at the enterprise level, quantify those risks, and make sure that you're mapping it to the compliance and framework. And all these should be driven through the dynamic and customizable dashboards. Now I spoke about this one, but let's see how it can be implemented and can get the previous workflow that I showed, which takes 2 days minimum to do to go and assign it, how we can bring it to less than 2 hours. You should have a data fabric. The reason why I'm talking about data fabric is because you need to have the data to make sure that CTEM runs, because you have to go and collect the data from every single IT and security tools which provides those 4 information, that is inventory, vulnerabilities, business context, and the security controls. Ingest the data through the APIs automatically, continuously into the data fabric. Make sure that you're continuously ingesting the data from CMDB and GRC. You should not stop there. As I mentioned earlier, you should be looking at ingesting the data from your security controls. These are only representation. Any security control that you have, it should be the part of the controls that you are ingesting it. And then obviously you'll be doing a lot of pen test and red teaming exercise manual, or you are doing the BAS breach attack simulations. You should be ingesting that one as well. And then based on all this information, you prioritize it and auto assign that one to the right people. Because I'm taking the data from the CMDB, I know who should be assigned it to, right? So once I have assigned it, it should be able to go and assign it to the users automatically. And they should be able to go and remediate it, say confirmation, auto validate it. With this one, if I just go back, till this, as I mentioned earlier, it takes minimum 2 days. You should be able to go and address that one in less than 2 hours. Because these are all being done continuously in real time. You should be able to go and do the prioritization, do the validation, everything in the real time, because all the data is coming continuously. That is how you can reduce it from 2 days to 2 hours. And then obviously the rest of the things is all what you do it through the validation. Now with this, you are able to address all the challenges that we mentioned earlier. That is from the prioritization perspective, having the silos process, having the vulnerability management fragmented, the inefficient SecOps, we are able to address this particular part. Now also, what are the things that we are addressing through the CTEM is support for ever expanding and evolving attack surface. You should be able to keep on. It's not only the IT assets, you should be able to have it for OT and IoT assets as well. That is also something that you should be able to consider when you look into the attack surface. Continuous asset visibility across the environment by continuously ingesting the data from across all the different data sources. Centralized data and open security graph. That is where you can go and socialize all the data across all the different data sources. And then obviously risk-based prioritization through security controls and threat intel. From the proper prioritization based on the security controls, as well as from the validation perspective, aggregate and correlate all the vulnerabilities across your tools. Real-time business contextualization, audit ready exposure management, and then obviously automated remediation workflows here. So this is something what I feel like you should be looking at. What are the challenges and how we can address it through the CTEM. I wanted to end my session on one note. If you're looking at CTEM, there's 2 things that we need to keep in mind. One, you need to look at the platform which can integrate all your existing investments. Number 2, data. Wherever you have it, you use that one from the prioritization perspective. Thank you.